Oh, good Yontiv, everybody. Well, a good Erev Yontiv. Today, the last day of the year, Tavshin Pei. Now, this day has been quite a day for me. Very busy, a lot of things going on. Final preparations before Rosh Hashanah. But this day has really, to me, represented what this entire year has been about. I had big plans. I was going to sit and prepare this derasha, do this video, put it on YouTube. It's going to go great. That was going to be the night, the evening before this last day of the year. But unfortunately, I got a call right before I was about to do so from Malka, who got into an accident in the car. Somebody hit her. She's fine. Everybody's fine. Car, not so fine. But you know what? There went my night. And there went my plans. Now that's what, to me, this entire year has felt like. The entire year has been impossible to plan because it has really been crazy. Things that we have never experienced before, things that we've never beheld, we are witnessing day in and day out. It's remarkable. And it's something which really I think about when it comes to this all-important day of Rosh Hashanah, particularly when I think of the shofar. Now, let me explain to you what I mean. I had planned to talk about something else today. I had planned to talk about why instead of a ball dropping, we use the shofar's blow in order to inspire us. But this end of the year and this encapsulation of the entire year makes me think something different is really in order. Think about the ram itself, the ram which brings us the shofar, and the ram that comes from the Akedah. And it's very strange why it is that we use the ram to blow the shofar with, which really represents the failure of the Akedah. The Akedah was about the Mesiras Nefesh, the self-sacrifice of Abraham taking his son Yitzchak and doing what he had to do to Yitzchak because God had said so. That would be the ultimate measure of sacrifice. But he doesn't. Instead, he uses the ram. The ram is like the consolation prize, and the shofar on the ram seems not to be about what the success of Abraham was, but it seems to be almost about the failure. He never really was able to prove himself because of the ram. The ram almost is plan B. Now, I asked this question in my shir, and one of my students actually told me, he said, who says that the ram is plan B? Maybe the entire time, the whole goal was for the ram to be what was ultimately taken as a carbon on that mountain, and ultimately for us to learn from that ram. What would we learn from the ram? What could we learn from a plan B? So many, many years ago, I shared a medrash, which is so beautiful in this context. And the medrash says as follows. This ram was not just any ram that happened to be caught in the thistles for that morning. Rather, this ram, as the medrash describes, was somehow accompanying Avraham all day. Through the corner of his eye, Avraham could see this ram, and he could see hey, the ram's coming up the mountain with them, Har HaMoriah, and then it gets stuck, and then somehow it gets itself out. It was a bit of a, spaz of a ram, and it gets stuck, and it moves, and it gets stuck, and it moves, and the entire time, Avraham, through the corner of his eye, sees this ram going through these little struggles, and then pushing forward up the mountain, and then again, getting stuck, and again, and again, and again. And then finally, that's the ram that replaces Yitzchak. And so perhaps what we learn from this ram is actually that plan Bs can teach us something which is way more significant and way more different than what we had thought we were meant to learn. Avraham thought that this was a big Mesiras Nefesh moment. He had thought that, hey, this is it. Sometimes there are tremendous decisions that we make in life. And these tremendous decisions have such import and such gravity. They're so critical. They are a fork in the road that's going to mean everything. And sometimes we think that that's all that matters. It's the big line item, big ticket items that really matter in our lives. But the ram actually shows us that that's not true. The plan B teaches us that sometimes it's really just about pushing ahead, pushing up the mountain, trying to get a little bit further than you were before, understanding that we get stuck along the way, and that's all right. So whereas Yitzchak may have been the ideal, and it may have been representative of this incredible act of Mesiras Nefesh, perhaps the ram actually was the point. Plan B was the point all along, to teach us that we're not only found, our sacrifice is not only found in the huge moments, but it could be found in the small ones as well. When I think about this, I think of a story with Malka's grandfather, Zelig Epstein. And this story is incredible, and I told it 11 years ago, a really long time ago, right after I heard it, after he had passed away. And the story goes that he was close with this family in Old Williamsburg, not like the English one, but the one in Williamsburg, New York. And back then, he knew this family really well, and they were beset with problems. the husband, the father, committed suicide tragically, and then they had a sick child, and then finally, lo aleinu, the child passed away. And having been close with this widow who is now bereaving her child who had passed away, he was very nervous. It was Erev Yom Kippur, and he had been on the phone with her, and she was really, really despondent, really, really depressed. And he got very nervous. He said, I got to get over there, see what's going on, see if she's okay, get her some help. And so the way the story goes is that on Yom Kippur, Erev Yom Kippur, he chooses to travel the few miles to get to her house. But it was like a long trip, and it was be a long walk, and he wasn't sure that he'd be able to make that long walk and that she would still be safe. And so what he did was he went to Yeshiva Torah V'das, and he goes up to the front of the room and he sees his Rebbe, his very close peer, Yaakov Kamenetsky, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. And they're in the middle of Birchos Kriya Shema of Mariv of Yom Kippur. Everybody has got the talis and the kittel, the whole thing. He comes running in, he leans over to tell him the story in the middle of Birchos Kriya Shema, in the middle of the brachos surrounding the Shema. You can imagine what a scene it would have made. And he told Rabbi Yaakov this story. And he told Rabbi Yaakov why he had to go, etc. And can I take a bus? Was his question. Can I take a bus on Yom Kippur? And Rabbi Yaakov responded by pointing to the change that was in his shtender, the change for his own bus fare to be able to get home. And so indeed Rabbi Zelig went, and he took the bus, and he went, and he spent that evening trying to figure out how to take care of this woman. That's a plan B Yom Kippur. He didn't intend that morning to not be in shul and to not be shuckling and davening with his kittel, maybe next to Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. But his Yom Kippur went in a very different direction, and that's the Yom Kippur, and this is the story we read about now, 10 years later, in books. I don't know anything about his Yom Kippur, regular Yom Kippur evenings, but I know about that one. That plan B became a lesson, a tale that we now relate to learn what a Yom Kippur is about. You know, one of the symbols of Rosh Hashanah is the symbol of honey. Honey, right here. And the remarkable thing about honey is that honey is not, it's sweet, it's delicious, but it's not the type of thing we ever eat alone. Honey is there to take something that's plain, to take something that may be even a little bit bitter, and to really bring the sweetness out of it. We want it to be improved. We put some honey on it. So perhaps the symbol of honey, and it's really there to take all of the prickly and difficult things that we deal with throughout our lives, throughout our year, all of the things we've been struggling with. Maybe we have a way to pour a little bit of honey on all of that. Get a little bit of honey on all of these experiences. Try to talk about how we can learn from them, what we have grown because what we have seen, how perhaps we could take into the next year a new perspective, which maybe will inform whatever else is coming our way. I wish you all a Shana Tova, an incredible year, an incredible Tavshin Pei Aleph. I hope everything we've learned in the past does us well in our mission, in our lives, towards the future. Shana Tova.